Hello everyone, I just want to film a quick, well maybe not so quick, book-to-movie comparison for Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And remember that I'm not pointing out every single difference, because that could take a long time. But the ones that stood out to me, I thought it was interesting that in the beginning, Harry was spying on the Dursleys in order to listen to the news, and he was busted. And I found it so annoying how Harry was whiny all the time about being alone, and not informed on what was going on in the wizardry world. There was more of a conversation with Mrs. Fig and Mundungus. Fletcher was involved. And there was a conversation about the Dementors with the Dursleys, which was left over the movie. And Harry whined about not being told a good job in fighting the Dementors. Just basically summed it up as Harry whined a lot in this book. And Aunt Petunia showed fear of Voldemort, and she acknowledged the magical world, which isn't seen in the movies. And Vernon even told him to get out, and a howler was sent to Aunt Petunia that said, "Remember my last, Petunia," and that was, as we find out later, was from Dumbledore. And she actually said the boy will have to stay. And then when he finally gets to Ron and Hermione, he whines because he doesn't know what's going on, and he's been at Privet Drive all summer while they've been together at Grimmauld Place at the headquarters. And it's kind of left out that Percy and Mr. Weasley had a fight, and Percy definitely is estranged from the family right now, which is kind of left out. And it's also left out, of course, that Bill and Charlie are members of the Order of the Phoenix, and Bill's been seen at the headquarters off and on throughout the book, even though not in the movie. And there's more of a conversation at Grimmauld Place, such as there's werewolf conversation at the dinner table. And I feel like that is a key point that got left out, because werewolves were not really discussed too much in the fight with Voldemort. And let's see, sorry for my kitty. And let's see. Mundungus is a useful member of the Order, which has been left out quite a bit. And Miss Weasley is trying to keep Harry living as a child. And she has an out with Sirius about telling Harry more. And there's definitely tension between Sirius and Mrs. Weasley in the book, which isn't discussed in the movie. And at Christmas time, they kind of make peace with each other in a way. And Buckbeak is staying there too, which is left out. And Percy was at Harry's hearing and ignored his dad as he walked past. And Mrs. Fig left before the vote, even though in the movie I thought it was really funny how she raised her hand. And Sirius did not appear happy for Harry to be able to go back to Hogwarts. He didn't want to be alone. And one big thing I wish was in the movies was that Ron and Hermione were made prefects, which Harry was disappointed about in her, but they also have duties like on the train and stuff that is left out and throughout the school year. And Molly holds a little celebration dinner in honor of that, and she got Ron a new broom. I cannot talk, sorry guys, I'm not re-recording this. And it was Mad-Eye Moody that gave Harry the original Order of the Phoenix picture, not Sirius. And Molly was supposed to be taking care of a boggart, but she broke down, and Harry found her sobbing, and it was taking different forms of her kids being dead and her husband being dead. And then Lupin and Sirius came up, and they comforted her and talked her down and fixed the whole boggart situation. And she said that she kept having dreams about that, which made me sad. Current situation, my cat. And there was more of a gun, including Lupin at the train station. And sadly, Ron and Hermione had to go to the prefect's area, so Harry, Neville, and Ginny sat with Luna in the train, and that's how they met her. Cho Chang had popped in to say hi, and getting off the train, there was no Hagrid, Professor Grubbly Plank was telling the Felicitors to come to her instead. And in the book, there were several conversations wondering what happened to Hagrid, which kind of just brushed over in the movie. And Neville also defended Haley and Dumbledore and the Seamus. And Potter was sent with a note to Professor McGonagall, who told him to keep his head down and his temper under control, especially since Umbridge was watching him. Hermione had threatened Fred and George to rate their mom if they didn't stop feeding the sweets to Felicitors, which they were terrified by, which was funny. And Hermione left out hats that she knit over the summer for the house elves, which, of course, again, was left out of all the movies. There wasn't much Quidditch in the movie, and Ron made keepers, and there was that whole spiel with that. And it was Ron who noticed Haley's red hand from the detentions. And they had a conversation one-on-one. And then Percy had sent a letter to Ron and suggested that he sever ties with Haley, and hinted at things would be changing more at Hogwarts soon. And Haley received a second week of detention with Umbridge with the same punishment, and just that Haley can't seem to keep his mouth shut around Umbridge. And Sirius met them in the fight, telling Ron that Mrs. Weasley told him to not join the defense club, and advised Haley and Hermione not to, but he suggested it was a good idea. And it was him, not Ginny, that suggested the Shrieking Shack as a meeting place. And the combo ended with Professor Umbridge trying to catch Sirius in the fire. And Mundungus was pretending to be a witch at Hogshead, and he was watching Haley during the Hogsmeade weekend. And let's see. Hedwig came back with mail, and he was injured. And Dobby brought Hedwig back in the middle of the night, and he was wearing almost all the clothes that Hermione had knit, the hats, scarves, socks, because none of the other house elves wanted to clean Gryffindor and Slytherin because they didn't want the clothes. And he brought Winky some of them. But Dobby was hoping to see Haley, and he told him about the perfect place to meet, which is the room of requirement, not Neville. And after Malfoy provoked Fred, George, and Haley, the three received a lifelong ban from Quidditch by Umbridge. The Slytherins kept singing the song that Weasley isn't the king, and they had badges that said it too. And it was interesting that Fawkes kept an eye out for Umbridge, who knew they were out of the bed when the Weasley children, Haley and Professor McGonagall, were in Dumbledore's office, when Haley had the vision that Mr. Weasley was injured. And they left Hogwarts by a portkey, and Haley went with them right away, not like in the movies. They ended up taking Mr. Weasley to St. Mungo's, and Mrs. Weasley, the Weasley children, and Haley stayed with Sirius, and they went to visit Ursula with Tonks and Mad-Eye Moody. And Haley starts wondering if he was possessed by Voldemort, and there's talk about that too. And there's more portraits throughout the story, and the conversations, and how they visit from portrait to portrait and talk with Dumbledore in his office. And one said that he had a message from Dumbledore saying, "Stay where you are," because Haley thought about leaving, and Hermione came for Christmas. She didn't take the skiing trip, and she took the night bus, and they took that back to Hogwarts. They saw Professor Lockhart at St. Mungo's, and they also saw Neville and his grandma, who were visiting his parents, and Harry and Ron had no idea about it. And Snape came to Grimmauld Place to tell him that Dumbledore wants to study occlumency. And Snape and Sirius had a heated conversation, of course. And then Valentine's Day, there was a Hogsmeade visit, and Harry ended up taking Cho, and he took her. He wasn't really decisive, and she wanted to go to a tea shop, and all these couples were all intimate. But then he made a mistake of telling Cho he was meeting Hermione, and Cho brought up Cedric, which he didn't want to talk about. She cried and said, "But you'll talk to Hermione about it. And how many other girls are you meeting today?" So basically, you can tell those two are not meant to be together. And Then Haley met Hermione, who weirdly had Rita Skeeter and Luna. And basically, Hermione set it up that she had an honest interview with Haley, and Rita Skeeter had to write exactly the facts, and it was to be published in Luna's father's newspaper, The Quibbler. And Hermione had threatened that Rita Skeeter was an unregistered animagus. So that was how that happened. The article was published, and several letters from the readers came with owls. Cho gave him a kiss on the cheek and called all was forgiven. And Umbridge banned him from any more Hogsmeade visits. She also banned The Quibbler, which made it more popular, so everyone was reading it. And then, when Professor Trelawney was fired, Firenze, a centaur, took over the divination classes. And he was banished from his hood since he took the job. And Firenze tells Harry to tell Hagrid that the attempt is not working and he should abandon it. It was like a warning from the centaurs in the woods. And then Dobby came to warn him at the Dumbledore's army practice that Umbridge knows about it and she was coming to run. And Harry tells everyone to run, but Malfoy catches Harry. Of course, Umbridge was happy. And in the book, Cho's friend was an informant, not Cho. And the way Dumbledore left was a tad different. He knocked them out with something, and he was able to talk to McGonagall and Harry before he left. And give them words of wisdom, and he emphasized occlumency. And Harry was in Umbridge's office when Fred and George's violence went off, not seeing the owls, and they were going off all afternoon, and professors had Umbridge come and try to take care of them, just to inconvenience them, even though they knew how to get rid of them. And, let's see. Harry saw Snape's memories from a pensive, not from the occlumency thing, and then he started wondering what kind of person his dad was. So, Fred and George caused a distraction so that Harry could talk to Sirius in the fire. And he also had creative advice with McGonagall and Umbridge, and he wanted to be an Order, which Professor McGonagall said it was a difficult path, and Umbridge said not to give him false hope. And when he did reach out to Sirius and Lupin talked to Harry and explained that James was a good person. And then, since Fred and George had created a portable swamp, he threw the invisibility cloak over when Filch came in, and Fred and George was busted by Umbridge. They left Hogwarts before she could expel them, so it wasn't just the violence, it was the portable swamp. I feel like they don't get enough credit in the movies for the shenanigans, and they're so fun. And then the swamp was left, and the teachers didn't offer to help, and then other people took it upon themselves to be troublemakers after the Weasley twins left. And during the Quidditch match is when Hagrid sought out Harry and Hermione to meet Grawp. And one thing I wish they would have included more in the movie is the tension, the stress, the extra homework for the owls, and the exams itself. And sacking Hagrid was a more pronounced affair, and McGonagall was even brought to St. Mungo's because she took 4 stunning spells. And Ron and Hermione tried to reason with Harry before going to the Ministry and reminded him Dumbledore wanted him to practice occlumency. And I feel like Ginny's intelligence is better seen in the book, even though I've never been one for Harry and Ginny's couple. I just knew I didn't want him with Cho Chang. And then the Valentinum was used last on Harry, not on Cho. And Harry and Hermione had to plead with the sentence to let them go, and Grawp came and saved them. But he was asking where Hagrid was. And Luna helped Ron, Hermione, and Ginny get on the Thestrals' backs because they couldn't see him. And it wasn't as easy for the group at the Ministry as the movie suggested. Hermione was knocked out, and Neville carried her. Ginny hurt her ankle bad. Ron was acting out of it and giggling. Haley drew the Death Eaters away, but then Neville came to help, and Bellatrix tortured Neville with the Crucius... I can't even say that today. And Neville had stabbed a Death Eater through his mask with Hermione's wand, because his was broken. And that let Haley be released. So I just feel like Neville wasn't given enough credit, even though he's somewhat portrayed decently in the movies. And it was just Neville with Haley and not the others when everything happened with Sirius. And Dumbledore came sooner, helping fight, and Nymphadora was injured, and she had to spend some time at St. Mungo's as well. And then at the end, Dumbledore says it was his fault Sirius was dead. He should have been more open with Haley. And that Snape had searched the Forbidden Forest for Haley, too. And that since Haley's mom died saving Haley, that blood bond became the strongest shield that Dumbledore could have ever given Haley. So, basically, don't mind flipping pages, as long as he returns to the Dursleys once a year and calls at home, Voldemort can't hurt him there. And that was also left in the letter that he left with Haley when he left Haley under the door steps all that time ago. And Haley just went to visit Hagrid by himself, and Haley was packing up and had forgotten Sirius had given him that present, which was a two-way mirror. And then Haley had asked nearly Headless Nick if Sirius would come back as a ghost. Like he was just having a hard time coming to terms with his death and he wanted to see him again. And they kind of left out Hogwarts ride home. And they left out how Ron is protective of Ginny, like who she dates. He doesn't like anyone she dates. And then some of the Order met them at the train station, and they had a chat with Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia, and threatened that if they mistreated Haley, they would send someone. Which, I wish they would have included that kind of stuff in the book. They never include those interactions between the Wizards and the Dursleys, which is funny. Some things I loved about the movie is how they bring Haley to headquarters and how the Ministry of Magic looks, the healing itself, and how Filch nails up the educational decrees, and just all the practices that Dumbledore's army has, and how Dolores Umbridge is portrayed. And I love Fred and George's violence and occlumency lessons. And in the book, Creature told Haley that Sirius was out, and he was the one who went to Narcissa and told Voldemort secrets. And that was left out of the movie, kind of. But I also love the forest scene with Umbridge, and I love the whole final few minutes of the Ministry of Magic. The battle scenes, especially between Voldemort and Dumbledore. Alright, thanks for watching. I know it's kind of lengthy, and I stumbled over my words, but this is real life. And I hope to finish Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince soon, and have another one coming up. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.